The blue-white sphere of Earth hung peacefully against the backdrop of stars. Commander Jack Nelson stood at the viewport of Space Station Liberty, watching as the alien ship approached. It was massive, at least 3 times the size of anything humans had built, with smooth curves that seemed to bend light around its hull. "They're hailing us again, sir," said Communications Officer Kelly Wright. Her voice was steady, but Nelson could hear the excitement underneath. "Put them through," Nelson replied, straightening his uniform. The weight of this moment pressed on his shoulders. First contact with the Zalaxian Empire, representatives of something called the Galaxy Council, had happened just 2 weeks ago. Now, they were meeting face to face. The main screen flickered to life. The alien that appeared looked almost like a tall human with purple skin, 6 fingers on each hand, and eyes that shimmered like opals. "Greetings, Commander Nelson. I am High Envoy Zarks of the Zalaxian Empire. We look forward to our meeting." Nelson nodded respectfully. "The feeling is mutual, High Envoy. Our docking bay is ready for your shuttle." An hour later, Nelson stood in the station's grand conference room alongside Earth's delegation. 5 men and women chosen to represent humanity to the stars. Ambassador Alan Hayes led the group, flanked by scientists, cultural experts, and military advisors. The doors slid open. 8 Zalaxians entered, their movements graceful and precise. High Envoy Zark stepped forward, towering over Ambassador Hayes. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we welcome you," Hayes said, extending his hand in the human gesture of friendship. Zarks looked at the offered hand with what Nelson thought might be amusement. "The Galaxy Council has observed your world for some time. Your species has potential, despite your violent tendencies. We've worked hard to overcome our past," Hayes replied. "Earth is united now, and we're eager to join the galactic community." Zarks nodded slowly. "Yes, that is why we are here." The meeting progressed smoothly. The Zalaxians spoke of trade, technology exchange, and Earth's eventual membership in the Galaxy Council. They showed holographic images of worlds beyond imagination, species of all shapes and sizes living in harmony. Nelson felt uneasy despite the friendly talk. Something in Zarks' eyes when he spoke of human potential bothered him. He noticed 2 Zalaxian guards whispering, their hands moving toward devices on their belts. His combat instincts, honed through years of service, screamed danger. "Ambassador," Nelson said quietly, moving closer to Hayes, "I think we should." The first energy blast hit Hayes directly in the chest, burning through him instantly. Before anyone could react, the conference room erupted in chaos. The Zalaxians drew weapons and fired on the human delegation without warning or mercy. Nelson dove for cover, pulling his sidearm. "Security breach. We are under attack," he shouted into his comm unit. The station's alarms wailed. Nelson fired back, hitting 1 Zalaxian, but their body armor absorbed most of the impact. He watched in horror as Dr. Susan Ward, Earth's leading xenobiologist, fell to the ground, her face frozen in shock. "Humans are too unpredictable," Zarks announced calmly, stepping over Hayes' body. "The Council has decided your species is not ready for membership. Earth will serve better as a resource world under our protection." Nelson crawled toward the emergency exit, blood streaming from a wound in his arm. 3 more security officers rushed in, only to be cut down immediately. "Find the commander," Zarks ordered. "No witnesses." Through blurry vision, Nelson saw the last of Earth's representatives fall. He reached the escape pod section, forcing his injured body to move faster. Alarms blared as he sealed himself inside a small shuttle and initiated launch. The tiny craft shot away from the station, just as more Zalaxian ships appeared in Earth's orbit. Through the shuttle's small window, Nelson watched communication satellites explode one by one. He knew what was happening. The aliens were cutting Earth off before launching their invasion. Pain throbbed in his arm, but the pain in his heart was worse. The peaceful meeting had been a trap all along. As his shuttle sped toward Earth's surface, Commander Jack Nelson made a silent promise to the colleagues he'd watched die. Earth would not surrender. Humanity would not be enslaved. The Zelaxians had made a terrible mistake. They had shown their true nature first, and Earth would respond in kind. Commander Jack Nelson's shuttle broke through Earth's atmosphere, trailing smoke and sparks. The landing was rough, the small craft skidding across an empty field before coming to rest near a forest edge. His wounded arm throbbed with pain as he climbed out. Within hours, the news had reached every corner of the planet. The Zelaxian ships now surrounded Earth, a ring of metal and weapons poised above major cities. Their message played on every screen and speaker: surrender or face destruction. In the underground command center beneath Washington, D.C., President Diane Lewis watched the satellite feeds with a grim expression. Commander Nelson stood beside her, his arm freshly bandaged, his face pale from blood loss and grief. "They killed everyone else?" the president asked quietly. Nelson nodded. "It was planned from the start. They never intended to welcome us into their galaxy council." Admiral Frank Porter, a man with gray hair and hard eyes, stepped forward. "Madam President, the Zelaxians have given us 12 hours to surrender. After that, they start bombing major cities." The room fell silent. Earth's military might was impressive by human standards, but against a spacefaring empire, they had no chance in a direct fight. "What are our options?" President Lewis asked. Admiral Porter exchanged looks with Nelson. "There is one possibility, something we never wanted to use." He placed his hand on a scanner, and a hidden screen appeared on the wall. "Protocol Nemesis." President Lewis frowned. "The Deep Space Weapons Program. I thought it was theoretical." "No, ma'am," Porter replied. "After the Third World War, the United Earth government decided we needed insurance against threats from beyond our planet. We've been developing weapons at secret bases throughout the solar system. Weapons we considered too dangerous to use against fellow humans." Nelson looked up in surprise. He had heard rumors, but never believed them. "What kind of weapons?" the president asked. Admiral Porter touched the screen, revealing images of massive ships hidden in asteroid belts and on distant moons. Ships with stealth technology, gravity manipulation devices, and Project Leviathan. "Get Dr. Olivia Grayson on the line," Porter continued. "She heads the research division. She'll explain better than I can." Minutes later, the stern face of Dr. Grayson appeared on screen. She wore a lab coat, and behind her, technicians moved urgently through what looked like a massive underground facility. "Madam President," she said, "I never thought we'd need to have this conversation." "Tell me about Project Leviathan," the president replied. Dr. Grayson nodded. "In simple terms, it's a weapon that can alter gravitational fields. It can trap ships in place, or tear them apart molecule by molecule." "And it works?" President Lewis asked. "In tests, yes, but we've never deployed it at full scale." The president looked around the room at the grim faces of her advisors, then at the screens showing Zelaxian ships hovering over frightened cities. Families huddled together, children cried, and the countdown to surrender ticked away. "We didn't start this," she said finally, "but we will finish it. Admiral Porter, initiate Protocol Nemesis." Porter nodded, then turned to a secure terminal. He placed both hands on it, and a computerized voice spoke. "Biometric confirmation accepted. Protocol Nemesis requires secondary authorization." President Lewis stepped forward. "Authorization. Thunderbolt." "Protocol Nemesis activated," the computer responded. "Transmission sent to all deep space facilities." On a screen, they watched as hidden doors opened on the far side of the moon. Dark ships, unlike any Earth had publicly acknowledged, moved silently into space. "Dr. Grayson," the president said, "how quickly can Project Leviathan be ready?" 72 hours, Madam President. We need to bring the components together. You have 48. Earth's survival depends on it." As the call ended, Commander Nelson stared at the screens showing the selection ships. They think we're helpless. They have no idea what's coming. President Lewis nodded grimly. Let's keep it that way until we're ready to show them exactly what humans are capable of when pushed too far. Far from Earth, hidden in the icy darkness of Neptune's moon Triton, Captain Samantha Reeves stood in the command center of humanity's most secret military base. Alarms had been blaring since Protocol Nemesis was activated. "Status report," she ordered, her breath visible in the cold air of the base. Lieutenant Greg Winters nodded at his screen. "All ships powered up and ready, Captain. Crews are boarding now." Captain Reeves looked through the massive window at the underground hangar. 6 sleek, black vessels sat in launch positions. They didn't look like regular spaceships. Their surfaces seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. "Attention all personnel," Reeves spoke into the communication system. "This is not a drill. Earth is under attack. Protocol Nemesis is in effect." The crew moved with purpose, despite many shocked faces. They had trained for years, hoping this day would never come. "What are our orders?" asked Lieutenant Winters. Reeves brought up a holographic map of the galaxy. 12 bright points marked the locations of wormhole gates, the network that connected the Galaxy Council's territories. "We're going to hit them where it hurts," she said. "Our mission is to disable these wormhole gates, cut off their ability to bring in reinforcements." Commander Ben Miller, her second in command, frowned. "The solar flare forecast says we have a big one coming in 6 hours. Should we wait? It would provide better cover." Reeves nodded. "Good thinking. We'll launch during peak flare activity. It will blind their long-range sensors." As the crews prepared, Reeves studied the enemy information transmitted from Earth. The Zolaxians were powerful, but their arrogance made them vulnerable. They believed humans were trapped on their planet with nowhere to run. They had no idea about the Neptune base or the other secret facilities scattered throughout the solar system. Back on Earth, in an underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Olivia Grayson worked frantically alongside her team. Project Leviathan was spread across the massive laboratory in pieces, components that needed to be assembled and calibrated. "Increase power to the containment field," she instructed a group of engineers. "The gravitational matrix needs to remain stable during transport." A young scientist approached her. "Dr. Grayson, we've run the simulations again. If the Leviathan works as designed, it will affect every Zolaxian ship in the solar system simultaneously." "And our own ships?" Grayson asked. "Unaffected. We've programmed it to recognize Earth technology." Grayson checked her watch. 36 hours left until the president's deadline. It would be close. In Washington, Commander Nelson had been given a new assignment. President Lewis needed someone to coordinate between the military and the scientific teams, someone who had seen the enemy up close. "The Zolaxians think they have us cornered," Nelson told the War Council. "That's why they're giving us time to surrender. They want to take Earth intact." Admiral Porter pointed to the latest satellite images. "Their ships haven't moved. They're just sitting there, waiting for us to give up." "Then we use that time," President Lewis said firmly. "How long until Captain Reeves launches the Neptune fleet?" 5 hours, Madam President. They're waiting for a solar flare to provide cover." Lewis nodded. "And Dr. Grayson's progress?" "She says Project Leviathan will be operational in 36 hours. That's cutting it close." As they discussed strategy, a message arrived from one of Earth's deep space monitoring stations. Multiple ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel near the edge of the solar system. More Zolaxian reinforcements. "They're positioning a second wave," Admiral Porter said grimly, "in case we resist the first." President Lewis stood tall, her resolve unwavering. "Then we need to make our first strike count. Contact Captain Reeves. Tell her that after she disables the wormhole gates, her next target is their supply lines." As night fell across America, the hidden preparations continued. In secret bases, inside mountain fortresses, and aboard stealth ships near Neptune, Humanity prepared to show the galaxy why Earth should never have been threatened. The Zalaxians had made their move. Now it was Earth's turn. The Galaxy Council chamber was a massive room with curved walls and a high ceiling that showed the stars beyond. Representatives from 27 different species sat in tiered seats, their attention focused on a central holographic display. Councillor Zixvon of the Zalaxian Empire stood to address the gathering. His purple skin glistened under the soft lights. "The Earth situation is proceeding as planned," he announced. "The humans will surrender within hours. Their planet has valuable resources and useful genetic material. The Zalaxian Empire claims Earth under Council law." A blue-skinned representative from the Elonian Federation raised a slender hand. "Was conflict necessary? Our reports suggested humans were ready for peaceful contact." Zixvon smiled thinly. "Humans are violent and unpredictable. Trust me, this was the safest approach." Suddenly, a red light began flashing throughout the chamber. A Galaxy Council aide rushed in, his expression alarmed. "Emergency communication from Sector 12, 8, and 3, the aide announced. "All 3 sectors have gone dark simultaneously." Zixvon waved dismissively. "A communication glitch. Nothing more." A holographic display in the center of the room flickered and changed to show 3 different locations, massive space stations that served as central hubs for different regions of Galaxy Council territory. All 3 were surrounded by debris, and moving among the debris were ships unlike any the Council had seen before. "Those can't be human vessels," gasped a representative from the turtle-like Shelleran Collective. "Earth doesn't have such technology." The image zoomed in on one of the black ships. It seemed to bend light around itself, becoming almost invisible before striking with weapons that tore through Zalaxian defenses like paper. Then, a transmission cut through on all channels. Captain Samantha Reeves appeared on screen, her expression cold and determined. "Attention Galaxy Council. This is Captain Reeves of Earth's Defense Force. You threw the first punch. This is our answer." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. "How is this possible?" demanded the representative from the militaristic Kronax hierarchy. "Zixvon, you assured us humans were primitives." Back on Earth, Admiral Porter received the encrypted message from Captain Reeves. The first strike had been successful. All 3 targeted wormhole gates were disabled, cutting off the Zalaxian fleet's ability to bring in reinforcements from those sectors. "It's time for Phase 2, Porter told President Lewis. "Shall I give the order?" The president nodded grimly. "Do it." Across the solar system, hidden weapons platforms activated. They weren't designed to destroy the Zalaxian ships outright. That would come later. Instead, they targeted communication systems, weapon controls, and navigation. In her laboratory, Dr. Grayson made a final adjustment to the central component of Project Leviathan. The device was smaller than most people expected, about the size of a kitchen appliance. But its potential was enormous. "Power level stable," reported one of her assistants. "Field integrity at 100%. Grayson took a deep breath. "Begin the activation sequence." As her team initiated the startup procedure, Grayson sent a message to the president. "Leviathan operational. Awaiting final authorization." The Zalaxian ships in Earth orbit suddenly found their systems malfunctioning. Weapons wouldn't fire. Communications broke down. Navigational systems showed false readings. High Envoy Zarks, now commanding the invasion from the flagship, raged at his officers. "Fix it now. The humans can't possibly have technology to interfere with our systems." "Sir," a junior officer reported nervously, "we're detecting unusual energy readings from Earth's moon. And something is happening to our secondary fleet near Jupiter." On the moon base, Commander Nelson watched as Project Leviathan was transported to its launch platform. The small device began to pulse with blue light as it powered up. "All personnel clear the launch area," Nelson ordered. "Leviathan deployment in 5 minutes." Across the vast chamber of the Galaxy Council, the representatives watched in horror as more reports flooded in. Human ships were appearing throughout Council space, targeting infrastructure rather than populations. "They're not killing civilians," the Elonian representative noted. "They're disabling our ability to function as a united force." Zix Vaughn's face darkened with rage. "This changes nothing. Earth will still fall." But as alarms continued to sound throughout the chamber, many council members weren't so sure. The humans had been gravely underestimated, and they were just getting started. Panic spread through the Galaxy Council chamber as more reports of human attacks flooded in. The representatives who had always seen themselves as the most advanced beings in the galaxy now faced an unexpected truth. They had underestimated Earth badly. "How could the humans have such technology?" demanded the representative from the insect-like Ring Collective. "They barely achieved space travel a century ago." Chancellor Elix of the Elonian Federation stood up, his blue skin shimmering with anger. "I think Councillor Zix Vaughn should explain why the information he provided about humans was so wrong." All eyes turned to the Zalaxian representative. Zix Vaughn's purple face darkened. "There may have been some details we overlooked," he admitted reluctantly. "Overlooked?" roared the representative from the Kronax hierarchy, pounding his armored fist on the table. "You told us humans were primitive. Now they're attacking across 3 sectors with technology that rivals our own." The council chamber erupted in shouting. Some species called for immediate peace talks with Earth. Others, particularly allies of the Zalaxian Empire, demanded a full-scale attack to crush the humans before they could strike again. "We should send our combined fleets," the Kronax representative suggested. "Wipe out their planet before they cause more damage." Chancellor Elix shook his head. "That would be a mistake. If humans can do this much damage with a small fleet, imagine what defenses they might have around their homeworld." While the council argued, Commander Jack Nelson led a small team on a dangerous mission. Using a captured Zalaxian shuttle and the access codes found in the wreckage of Space Station Liberty, Nelson and 6 specially trained soldiers approached the Zalaxian flagship in Earth orbit. "Everyone clear on the mission?" Nelson asked over the secure comm channel. His team nodded inside their helmets. "Get in. Access their central database. Find out why they targeted Earth. And get out," said Lieutenant Nana Carter, checking her weapon. "Simple." Nelson almost smiled. "Nothing's ever simple, Lieutenant." Their shuttle approached the massive Zalaxian flagship, transmitting the stolen codes. The docking bay doors opened, allowing them entry. "They're still arrogant," Nelson whispered as they moved through the ship's corridors, using stolen Zalaxian uniforms as disguise. "They can't believe humans would dare to board their command ship." On Earth, President Lewis received updates from all fronts. Captain Reeves and her fleet had successfully disabled 5 wormhole gates now, cutting off the Zalaxian reinforcements from key sectors. Admiral Porter's Phase 2 operations had crippled the communication systems of the invasion fleet. "And Project Leviathan?" she asked Dr. Grayson, who appeared on a secure video link. "Ready for deployment, Madam President. Once activated, it will create a localized gravitational field around each Zalaxian ship. They'll be frozen in place, unable to move or fire weapons." "Any risk to Earth?" Grayson hesitated. "Minimal risk to the planet itself, but there's always danger with new technology." President Lewis looked at the latest satellite images showing Zalaxian ships still hovering over major cities. "We've run out of options and time. Deploy Leviathan." In the Galaxy Council chamber, the argument continued to rage. The Elonian Federation formally called for peace negotiations with Earth. The Kronax hierarchy and 3 other militaristic species demanded immediate action against the humans. Zix Vaughn of the Zalaxian Empire tried to maintain control. "The situation is still manageable. Our main fleet surrounds Earth. The humans have merely struck at outposts." At that moment, an aide rushed into the chamber with a portable data terminal. "Urgent communication from the Zalaxian flagship at Earth. They report human intruders have breached the central database." Zix Vaughn's face drained of color. "Impossible. Inside the Zolaxian flagship, Commander Nelson and Lieutenant Carter worked quickly at a computer terminal while the rest of the team guarded the doors. "I found something," Carter said suddenly. "Look at this file. It's labeled Human Genetic Harvest Protocol." Nelson looked over her shoulder, his expression darkening as he read. "Download everything. The world needs to see why they really came to Earth." As data streamed to their secure storage device, Nelson realized the truth was far worse than anyone had imagined. Commander Nelson stared at the screen in the Zolaxian flagship, his heart racing as the terrible truth revealed itself. The data showed detailed plans for harvesting human genetic material on a massive scale. "They weren't planning to just conquer us," he told Lieutenant Carter, his voice tight with anger. "They wanted to farm us. Human DNA contained something they need, something that could make Zolaxians nearly immortal." Carter's face paled as she scrolled through more files. "Sir, look at this. Earth isn't the first. There are records of at least 12 other worlds they've harvested over the past century." An alarm suddenly blared throughout the ship. "They've detected us," Nelson said. "Download complete." Carter nodded, pulling the data device free. "Got everything." Nelson activated his emergency communicator. "This is Commander Nelson to Earth Command. We have the information. Transmitting now." As his team fought their way back to the shuttle, Nelson sent the data in an encrypted burst transmission to Earth. The soldiers moved quickly through the corridors, exchanging fire with Zolaxian security forces. 2 minutes to the shuttle bay, reported Sergeant Luis Mendez, checking the ship's layout on his wrist device. They rounded a corner and found themselves face to face with a squad of Zolaxian guards. Energy weapons fired from both sides. 2 of Nelson's team fell immediately. "Keep moving," Nelson shouted, returning fire as they retreated down a side passage. Back on Earth, Dr. Olivia Grayson stood in the control room of the lunar base, her hand hovering over the activation switch for Project Leviathan. Screens around her showed the positions of Zolaxian ships throughout the solar system. "Data transmission coming in from Commander Nelson," announced one of her technicians. "It's, my God." The information appeared on the main screen, revealing the Zolaxians' true purpose. The control room fell silent as everyone read the horrifying plans. "Those monsters," Grayson whispered. Then, with newfound resolve, she pressed the activation switch. Deploying Project Leviathan now. The small device they had worked on for years began to pulse with blue-white energy. On the screens, they watched as the energy signature expanded outward in waves, passing through the moon's surface and into space. Across the solar system, every Zolaxian ship suddenly found itself trapped in a localized gravitational field. The massive vessels froze in position, unable to move or fire weapons. On the Zolaxian flagship, High Envoy Zarks felt the ship shudder and stop. The artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. "What's happening?" he demanded of his officers. "Unknown energy field," reported his science officer. "It's affecting our engines, weapons, everything. We're completely immobilized." Zarks' face contorted with rage. The humans couldn't possibly have such technology. In Washington, President Lewis received confirmation that Project Leviathan had worked perfectly. Every Zolaxian ship in the solar system was now trapped in place. At the same moment, Nelson's transmission arrived, revealing the true purpose behind the Zolaxian attack. "Get this information to the Galaxy Council immediately," she ordered. "The whole galaxy needs to know what the Zolaxians have been doing." Admiral Porter nodded. "Captain Reeves is in position near one of the functioning wormhole gates. She can transmit directly to the Council." In the Galaxy Council chamber, the debate about how to respond to the human attacks was interrupted when the main screen activated without warning. Captain Samantha Reeves appeared, her expression grim. "Members of the Galaxy Council," she began. "The Zolaxian Empire has lied to you. They didn't come to Earth to bring us into the galactic community or to protect the galaxy from a dangerous species. They came to harvest us." She played Nelson's transmission, showing the Zolaxian plans in detail. The council chamber erupted in shock and outrage as the evidence revealed not just the plot against Earth, but the fate of a dozen other worlds that had already fallen victim to the Zolaxians. This changes everything, Chancellor Elix of the Elonian Federation said, rising to his feet. I call for an emergency vote. The Zolaxian Empire must be held accountable for these crimes. As the council reeled from these revelations, Councillor Zix Vaughn of the Zolaxian Empire sat in stunned silence. The carefully constructed lies that had protected his empire for centuries were finally coming apart. And the humans, who were supposed to be their next harvest, had turned out to be their undoing. 3 days after the activation of Project Leviathan, representatives from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency summit. The massive gathering took place in neutral space, with Earth participating through holographic projection. President Diane Lewis stood on a special platform in the White House, her image transmitted to the summit. Beside her were Admiral Porter, Commander Nelson, and Dr. Grayson. Their faces appeared as giant holograms before hundreds of alien representatives. Chancellor Elix of the Elonian Federation opened the proceedings. This emergency summit is called to address the crimes of the Zolaxian Empire and to hear from Earth directly. The Zolaxian representatives sat in silence, their once proud postures now slumped in defeat. With their ships frozen by Project Leviathan and their secrets exposed, they had no choice but to attend. President Lewis stepped forward, her voice firm. Members of the Galaxy Council. A week ago, Earth was attacked without provocation. We were told we would be welcomed into your community. Instead, we faced betrayal and plans for our enslavement. She nodded to Commander Nelson, who presented the evidence retrieved from the Zolaxian flagship. Images and data appeared, showing the genetic harvesting program in horrifying detail. The Zolaxian Empire has not only attacked Earth, Nelson explained, they have systematically wiped out or enslaved dozens of developing worlds across the galaxy. Gasps and murmurs spread through the assembly as more evidence appeared. Star systems marked for harvesting, worlds stripped of life, entire species reduced to genetic material in Zolaxian laboratories. Many worlds you believe were uninhabited were actually home to young civilizations, Admiral Porter added. Civilizations that disappeared when the Zolaxians found them. The representatives from the Chronax hierarchy, once allies of the Zolaxians, moved away from the disgraced Empire's delegation. No one wanted to be associated with such crimes. Chancellor Elix looked grave. These actions violate the most sacred principles of the Galaxy Council. I propose an immediate vote to expel the Zolaxian Empire from our ranks. The vote was quick and nearly unanimous. Only 3 species abstained. The rest voted to remove the Zolaxians from the Council. Now we must address the question of Earth, Elix continued. Humans have demonstrated technology and resolve far beyond what we expected. They have also shown remarkable restraint. President Lewis raised an eyebrow. Restraint. Yes, Elix nodded. Your weapons could have destroyed Zolaxian worlds. Instead, you targeted infrastructure and military assets, avoiding civilian casualties. This speaks well of your species. The assembly murmured in agreement. A representative from the Vreen Collective stepped forward, their insect-like form glittering under the lights. We propose that Earth be offered full membership in the Galaxy Council, effective immediately, the Vreen representative announced. Additionally, we propose a joint committee to oversee reparations to Earth and other affected worlds. President Lewis exchanged looks with her advisors before responding. Earth would be honored to join the Council. However, we have conditions. The assembly grew quiet, waiting. First, a complete overhaul of how the Council treats developing worlds. No more harvesting or colonization without consent. Second, technology exchanges must go both ways. And third, Earth will lead a new peacekeeping force to ensure no empire can ever do what the Zolaxians did again. Chancellor Elix considered these terms, bold requests from a new member. But given what humans have demonstrated, I believe they are reasonable. The vote to accept Earth's conditions passed with a strong majority. As the summit continued to discuss details, Commander Nelson stepped closer to President Lewis. "Do you think they'll honor this agreement?" he asked quietly. Lewis watched the alien representatives with cautious eyes. "They will if they're smart. They've seen what happens when Earth is threatened." Admiral Porter nodded in agreement. "I don't think anyone will underestimate humans again." In the days that followed, ships from friendly Council species began arriving at Earth, not as conquerors but as diplomatic envoys. The Zalaxian fleet remained frozen in place by Project Leviathan, awaiting decisions about their fate. Earth had not only survived its first contact with hostile aliens, it had emerged stronger, more respected, and with a voice in galactic affairs. The species that had been marked for harvesting was now helping to reshape the very structure of interstellar governance. And across the galaxy, news spread of the small blue planet whose revenge had changed everything. 1 year after Earth joined the Galaxy Council, the Grand Council chamber looked very different. Humans now occupied a prominent section, and the Zalaxian seats stood empty. Captain Samantha Reeves, now Earth's Security Council representative, studied the chamber as delegates arrived for the session. She wore a formal uniform with new insignia, showing Earth's position in galactic affairs. "Quite a change from last year," said Chancellor Elix, joining her. The Aelonian leader had become a strong ally to Earth. Reeves nodded. "Hard to believe we were fighting for our survival just 12 months ago." Across the galaxy, change had spread rapidly. The former Zalaxian Empire had undergone revolution after their crimes were exposed. A new government now struggled to rejoin galactic society, under strict oversight from the Council. On a research station orbiting Jupiter, Dr. Olivia Grayson led a multi-species scientific initiative. Scientists from 15 different worlds worked together studying the technology behind Project Leviathan. The gravitational manipulation principles could revolutionize space travel, Grayson explained to visiting dignitaries. "But we must ensure this technology is never weaponized again." Her team had created safety protocols and ethical guidelines for all advanced technologies shared between worlds. No species would be allowed to develop planet-killing weapons or genetic harvesting programs. Commander Jack Nelson, now Ambassador Nelson, worked closely with Chancellor Elix to rewrite the Galaxy Council's charter. His office on the Council's central station was filled with documents and holographic displays. "The new protection clause is essential," Nelson told a group of representatives. "Any developing world has the right to progress without interference. The strong must not prey on the emerging." His experience facing the Zalaxians had shaped his approach to diplomacy. He knew firsthand how easily power could corrupt, and how the vulnerable needed protection. On Earth, Admiral Porter oversaw the construction of a new defense fleet. Unlike the secret ships built before the conflict, these vessels were created openly, with technology exchanged through the Galaxy Council. Each ship combines the best designs from multiple worlds, Porter explained to President Lewis during an inspection. Earth's stealth systems, Aelonian shield technology, Vreen navigation systems. President Lewis nodded approvingly, a symbol of cooperation, not just military power. The galactic landscape had been transformed in unexpected ways. Worlds that had lived in fear of the Zalaxians now developed their own identities. Species that had been enemies for centuries found common ground working with humans. In Washington, D.C., President Lewis prepared for a historic address to the Galaxy Council. Her staff bustled around, finalizing details for the transmission that would be sent to thousands of worlds. "Are you ready, Madam President?" asked her Chief of Staff. Lewis took a deep breath and nodded. As ready as any human can be to address a galaxy. When the time came, President Lewis stood before the cameras, her image projected to the Galaxy Council chamber and to countless worlds beyond. 1 year ago today, Earth faced extinction at the hands of an empire that saw us as nothing more than resources to be harvested, she began. That day changed not just Earth's future, but the galaxy's path. The chamber fell silent as she continued. Earth's history is filled with dark chapters. We have known imperialism, genocide, and war. We have enslaved our own kind and destroyed our own environments. These painful lessons shaped us. Lewis paused, looking directly into the camera. We know the face of imperialism because we once wore it ourselves. We know the cost of war because we've paid it time and again. And now we know the value of vigilance because we almost lost everything. Throughout the chamber, representatives nodded in understanding. Earth's revenge wasn't found in our weapons or our technology. It was in forcing this galaxy to become better than it was. To recognize that strength comes with responsibility. That advanced species must protect developing worlds, not exploit them. As her speech concluded, the Galaxy Council erupted in applause. Even former enemies acknowledged the wisdom in her words. Later that evening, Ambassador Nelson stood with Captain Reeves and Dr. Grayson on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Do you think it will last?" Reeves asked quietly. "This peace we've built." Nelson watched distant ships moving between worlds that had once been isolated from each other. "Nothing lasts forever," he replied. "But we've created something better than what came before. And sometimes, that's enough." The three humans stood in silence, watching the galaxy that had tried to conquer them, but now followed their lead instead. Earth's revenge had indeed shocked the Galaxy Council, not through destruction, but through transformation.